Los Angeles, 1984. The city never really sleeps. Even late at night, headlights move along the highways. Neon lights glow outside diners, and the distant sound of helicopters echoes through the warm California air. But during the mid-1980s, something far darker began moving through the city. Someone who waited for the lights to go out. Someone who preferred the silence of midnight. And before long, Los Angeles would give him a name, the Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez was born in Texas in 1960. From the beginning, his life was surrounded by violence and instability. His father had a violent temper. His home life was chaotic. But one influence would shape him in disturbing ways: his cousin Miguel. Miguel had served in the Vietnam War and often told Richard stories about what he had done overseas. The stories weren't heroic, they were violent. Miguel would show young Richard photographs from the war, images of people he had harmed. Those stories and images left a deep impression on the boy. Then one day, when Richard was still young, something shocking happened. Miguel shot and killed his own wife during an argument, right in front of Richard. For a child already surrounded by violence, the moment left a permanent mark. As Richard grew older, he began drifting further into darkness. He became obsessed with drugs, crime, and violent fantasies. Eventually, he moved to California, and that's where the nightmare would begin. In April of 1984, the first known victim was Mei Lung, a 9-year-old girl living in San Francisco. She disappeared from the hotel where her family was staying. Her body was later found in a nearby basement. At the time, no one knew who was responsible, but investigators would later connect the crime to Richard Ramirez. It was the first sign of what was coming. By 1985, the attacks had escalated. Ramirez had developed a pattern. He would roam neighborhoods late at night, searching for houses with unlocked windows or doors. When he found one, he would quietly slip inside. Sometimes residents were sleeping. Sometimes they woke up to find a stranger standing in their room. One of the earliest confirmed victims was Maria Hernandez. In March of 1985, Ramirez attacked her outside her home. He fired a gun at close range, believing he had killed her. But incredibly, Maria survived. Her survival would later help investigators identify him. That same night, Ramirez entered another home. Inside lived Dale Okazaki, a 34-year-old woman. Ramirez shot her during the attack, and she later died from her injuries. It was the beginning of a terrifying series of crimes spreading across Los Angeles. Ramirez did not choose victims based on age or background, young or old, men or women, sometimes entire couples. Anyone could become a target. His attacks felt random, unpredictable, which made them even more terrifying. People began locking their windows at night. Gun stores reported increased sales. The fear spread through entire neighborhoods. No one knew where he might appear next. In May of 1985, Ramirez broke into the home of Vincent Zatzara and his wife Maxine. Vincent was killed during the attack. Maxine was also killed inside the home. When police arrived, investigators realized something deeply disturbing. The killer had spent time inside the house after the murders. It suggested a chilling level of calm and control. By now, detectives knew they were dealing with someone extremely dangerous, but they still didn't know his name. Then came another attack that shocked the city. Mabel Bell, an elderly woman, was alone in her home when Ramirez broke in. Neighbors later found her injured but alive. She survived long enough to tell police about the attacker. Descriptions began spreading through the media. but the killer was still moving freely through the city. As summer arrived, the attacks continued. One of the most disturbing incidents involved William and Lily Doy. Ramirez broke into their home in the middle of the night. The couple was attacked during the invasion. Neighbors heard gunshots and called police, but by the time officers arrived, Ramirez had already disappeared into the darkness. The randomness of the attacks terrified the public. People began sleeping with lights on. Parents checked locks multiple times before going to bed. The entire city felt like it was waiting for something to happen. Police investigators were struggling. At first, the crimes didn't seem connected. Different weapons were used, different neighborhoods, different victims. But eventually, detectives noticed something important. At several crime scenes, the attacker had left behind a very specific type of sneaker. This single detail became one of the most important clues in the investigation. Another attack soon followed. Christopher and Virginia Peterson were sleeping in their home when Ramirez broke in. Christopher was attacked while trying to protect his wife. Virginia survived the encounter and later described the terrifying moment when she realized someone was inside the house. Again, the attacker disappeared before police arrived. The city's fear continued growing. Newspapers began reporting the crimes almost daily. Residents demanded answers. And finally, the media gave the killer a nickname, the Night Stalker. The name spread quickly. Soon, everyone in Los Angeles knew it. The Night Stalker was out there somewhere, and every night he might choose another home. In August of 1985, Ramirez attacked Peter and Barbara Pan. Peter was killed during the attack. Barbara survived and provided investigators with one of the most important descriptions yet. For the first time, police had a clearer idea of what the suspect looked like: dark hair, thin build, piercing eyes. But Los Angeles was a massive city. Finding one man among millions was still extremely difficult. Then something unexpected happened. During one of his attacks, Ramirez abandoned a car he had stolen. Inside the vehicle, investigators discovered something crucial: a fingerprint. Police ran the print through criminal databases. Within hours, they finally had a name: Richard Ramirez, a 25-year-old man with a long criminal history. And now the entire country was about to see his face. The police released Ramirez's photo to the media. Television stations broadcast it across California. Newspapers printed it on the front page. Suddenly, millions of people were looking for the same man, and Ramirez had no idea. He had been traveling outside the city. But when he returned to Los Angeles and saw his face on the news, he realized something had gone terribly wrong. The entire city now knew who he was. Ramirez tried to escape, but the public was already watching. One morning in August of 1985, he walked into a convenience store in East Los Angeles. People immediately recognized him. Someone shouted his name. He ran, but this time, the city fought back. Residents chased him through the streets. Several people tackled him and held him down until police arrived. The Night Stalker had finally been captured. When Ramirez was brought to court, the world watched closely. He showed no remorse. At times, he smiled at cameras. He even raised his hand in the air, displaying a pentagram drawn on his palm. The trial lasted more than a year. Survivors testified about the terrifying nights they encountered him. Investigators described the long hunt that finally led to his arrest. And eventually, the jury reached a verdict. Richard Ramirez was convicted of multiple murders and numerous other crimes. In 1989, he was sentenced to death. For the people of California, The capture of the Night Stalker brought relief, but the fear he created lingered for years. His crimes had changed the way many people thought about safety in their own homes. Locks, alarms, security systems, things people once ignored, suddenly became essential. Richard Ramirez spent the rest of his life in prison. In 2013, he died while awaiting execution. But the story of the Night Stalker remains one of the most chilling chapters in American criminal history. Because what made the case so terrifying wasn't just the violence, it was the randomness. There was no pattern anyone could predict, no single neighborhood, no single type of victim, just a man moving silently through the night, searching for unlocked doors. And for months, an entire city went to sleep, wondering the same thing. Would the Night Stalker return tonight?